What is going on, Busy Bariatrics, and welcome back to another episode of the Busy Bariatric Podcast. Last episode, we talked about how putting yourself first is probably the biggest game changer on your bariatric journey. Today, we're going to talk about, once you start to assemble all of these things, how are you going to reward yourself that reflects that you have new, healthy choices in your life, behaviors, patterns, all that good stuff. The reason why I think this is so important is when I look at my life prior to bariatric surgery, I really did a terrible job of rewarding myself. Some simple examples would be I would crush and kill myself to be down 5 pounds. And then how would I celebrate? I would go out and crush a pizza or go drink beer all night or do all the other terrible behaviors that would cause all the weight to come tumbling back even heavier. A lot of the times my rewards were based around food, alcohol, retail therapy, things that really didn't fit my new lifestyle or the goals that I had moving forward. So today's episode is all going to be about healthy sources of dopamine after bariatric surgery. And in this episode, I'm also going to give you one way that you can start paying it forward so that you can find a free source of gratitude wherever you go. So, like I said before, one of the big things that I had prior to bariatric surgery was I really struggled with this dopamine food cycle where if I was happy, I would reward with food. If I was sad, I would console with food. Food was like the dopamine hit that kind of caused me to get regular or decompress for a lot of things. If I was overstimulated, I would use food. Understimulated, use food. Bored, happy, sad, name the emotion. To get me back to level, I would try to do it by either cooking or eating, and more so eating than cooking. So why this matters is that your brain naturally goes for food for comfort, and using things that are high in sugar, high in fat, or high carb usually trigger high levels of dopamine spikes. It's the reason why a donut is amazing. And it's also the reason why we don't necessarily reward with the chicken breast either, which is high protein, low fat, low carb. Keep that in mind while we go through all this, that there is this scientific component of how dopamine gets released, but that there is also some nutritional foundations that we do want to cover with this. So after bariatric surgery, especially in the immediate phases, you can't necessarily reward yourself with food the way you used to because you have such a limited capacity in your stomach and ability to contain anything. As you go on, though, your stomach is going to get more comfortable with volume. And as that goes down or up with the amount of volume you can eat, if you are rewarding yourself with high dopamine, high sugar, high carb, high fat items, there is a tendency for those items to also be calorically dense. And because of that, it can also cause there to be this high caloric spike, which in return can cause regain. One of the most important things that we need to do after bariatric surgery is we have to change and break that cycle. A lot of the times when we feel like we need something, we reward immediately with that high fat, high sugar item. And that's going to say, okay, we got a quick reward, it's bringing us down, and we're going to feel well. That kind of works in the long run, but after bariatric surgery, it is going to cause stalls and regain, like we said, as well as it doesn't really address the fact of why we are getting all these emotions coming or how we need to address them moving forward. So, some of the things that we start to do in Busy Bariatrics is when we notice that we are struggling with how our healthy sources of dopamine should come in, we have to start to identify what's causing us to turn to that dopamine or go for our fix. So when it comes to a food standpoint, a lot of the times we will ask our clients to journal out, all the times and reasons you turn to food outside of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that can be simple things as I'm too tired, I'm overstimulated, I'm understimulated, I was upset with how someone said something. I'll personally admit, as a teacher, I love my job, but there are some high stress situations that we get into, just like any other job. And I found myself this week where I really wanted to turn to food. And I hadn't done that in a while, but you need to know that that still can happen. So I was in a little bit of a high stressful situation. And all I wanted was let me just go to Taco Bell. Let me just get something. And Before, I wouldn't even think twice. I would have gotten in the car, I would have driven up, I would have ordered the thing, eaten it, felt that relief. I can actually feel myself almost like getting it washing over me, if you're watching this on YouTube, of just the joy of having like the chicken quesadilla. Like I am seeing it, I am picturing it. Or saying like, you know what? Today was a rough day. Tomorrow morning, I'm starting on the right page by getting Taco Bell breakfast. I love Taco Bell breakfast. Not necessarily the best for you after bariatric surgery, or if you're trying to get into a cut, but boy, is it delicious. But even simple things like that of delayed gratification and then still making the reward being a highly, high carb, high fat, calorically dense item still isn't necessarily going to help me hit my goals. So part of it is realizing, well, why am I doing that? Well, in this situation, I was very stressed. I know that I didn't do the job to my best of my abilities, and that really upset me. And even in like coaching and teaching and being a husband and a father, the thing that'll probably draw the most emotion out of me is when I feel like I didn't show up as best I could, or I could have done better. And it keeps me up at night. And I can count like in the bariatric community, in other aspects, like in coaching and stuff, where it's like I did not give my best self, and it like still haunts me. And that list like lives rent free in my head. I will say I go to therapy and talk about it quite often with Dr. Banford. But where before it used to get me really upset if I thought about it, thinking about it would trigger me to want to go to food or alcohol again. And then I had to remind myself that it didn't work. And that's the biggest thought loop that I have. So after I start to feel those emotions or get stuck in my feels, I will start to journal out why I'm feeling that way. Is it true? And if it is true, then by who? So did someone actually say I let them down, or do I think I let them down? And that sometimes leads to some really powerful conversations that I've had to have with some of my friends, family, and loved ones, where I will outright go to like students, my own kids, my wife, my loved ones, my friends, be like, hey, I feel like I didn't really show up the best in this situation, and I feel terrible about it. What do I need to do to make it right? And one of two things usually happens. Number one is they say, it really wasn't that serious. You're in your head. And I can kind of say like, okay, I've addressed the situation. I'm taking a deep breath, and now I feel good. We are on the same page. Or they're going to say like, yeah, you did kind of mess that up, but here's how you can make it right by me. And it can be something that someone's like, don't let it happen again. Don't do this again. Don't address this. And that's all totally fine. And something that helps me figure out what I need to do. And then there's also the time where they're like, you can't really fix this problem. And then that even at least gives me the relief of, I know that I've broken something severely. And it's just not there anymore. But knowing that I can't fix it is almost relieving, because I know it's not from a lack of my part. It is from the other person at that point. And I just have to accept the consequences of my actions. Small things like getting it off your chest gives me such a dopamine rush these days, of letting my head hit the pillow, knowing that either the situation wasn't that deep, it was that deep, but here's how I can fix it, or it was that deep and that is over and I can walk away from it. Any of those three outcomes really do let me feel a level of peace that helps me get over it. But more importantly, it helps so that I'm not worrying about it. It's not living rent free in my head. And more importantly, it keeps me from turning to food, worrying about something that is out of my control. And that plays a really big role. Now, if you're like, I'm not really a worrier, but I need to figure out some things, getting healthy sources of dopamine shows up in so many different ways that we're going to address. The first one I always recommend to clients is we need to start putting proactive pieces of dopamine into your life so that you have these things that make you feel happy, as opposed to just being at a baseline, waiting to get too low and then coming up. So I want you to picture it. If it's on a line, if you're seeing on YouTube, you're seeing this great Italian handwork that I'm doing. I'm like, if this is just your regular day, if you are putting things like working out, self-care, and things that spike your dopamine in a healthy way, you're naturally putting your balance above and putting it upwards in a positive way. Which means when something brings you down, you might only be coming down slightly, but you're not down at baseline and you're not necessarily down below. The opposite of that is if you normally stay at base and then something bad happens, well, you're at base, so then you come lower and then it becomes that much tougher to bring up. So what we teach clients to do is by building healthy sources of dopamine, we keep ourselves up a little bit higher each day so that when things get us down, it brings us down, but we're close to the baseline as opposed to below. I'll put the hands down and get back to the work. So one of the first natural dopamine boosters that you can do that is a healthy source is just working out on a regular schedule. And being very clear of when your rest days and recovery days are. So for me, it's taking my calendar and saying, okay, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are lift days. Monday and Friday are rest days. Saturday, Sunday are lift days. Okay, those are my clear days that I lift. That's the dopamine that goes on. On Mondays and Fridays, and sometimes I switch it to Thursday and then lift Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I really lean into doing yoga on Thursday mornings. It's hot yoga. I have been melting myself off in those rooms, but I feel so much better and it starts my day balanced and I get this like sereneness about me that just really does a really good number. So doing something as simple as yoga and having a balance allows that to happen. Also having very clear rest days in there allows me to break it up while still feeling like I'm not missing something. And that's why I always say like scheduling your workouts can really help you get the results that you want because it allows you to have active rest and recovery days as opposed to being like, well, I'm just not going to go to the gym. Today's now my rest day. Tomorrow's going to be my lift day. By having a clear set schedule, it gives you the discipline to get in on the days you say you will, and that's going to give you dopamine. But it also allows you to release dopamine on the days that you have off because you know it's your day off. I try to keep Sundays as sacred as possible for that very reason, that is my time to shut down, not worry about everything, and get everything together. And that's a way that we do that with exercise. And that helps increase those dopamine receptors. The other thing is just finding new hobbies and interests. For me, like my biggest hobbies and interests prior to bariatric surgery was spending a lot of money on goofy things, eating really lavish and decadent dinners, and then going to bars and kind of partying it up, all of which would blow my bank account and blow my calories out of the water. My big struggle was after June of 2020, when I got my bariatric surgery, we were still very much in full pandemic level. And I was very isolated and I had to like talk to my therapist about I am really struggling because all of my sources of dopamine I had taken away. I couldn't drink this first 6 months after bariatric surgery, so that was off the table for dopamine. I couldn't eat decadently anymore because if I ate anything more than like 2 ounces of whitefish at a time, I would throw up and that would cause issues. So that was like strike 2 right there. Well, retail therapy, we were going through my finances and our family finances, and we were close to $250,000 in debt outside of our home. So that is like student loans, credit card bills, medical payments, all that stuff. So retail therapy was not going to be an option as well. And I really struggled with what am I going to do with my time? Dr. Banford, my awesome therapist, said, well, walking is free and it's kind of nice out. And it's one of the few things you can do outside. Why don't you go for a walk? And it slowly became like my little source of dopamine. I would go for a walk. I would be in nature. I'd get some sunlight on me. I would get my heart rate up. I would breathe in nature. And it was a really nice way to start to get that working. And then it would be a way that I could build social connections as well. I really struggled with my friends because so much of our lifestyle came down to we're going to meet at a bar. We're going to go to a restaurant. Well, what do you do with friends, especially like when you're in your middle ages, to hang out? And my friends were really good. They would go on walks with me. They would pick up the phone when they knew I was walking. So even if they couldn't walk next to me, they would go on a walk and we would be on our headphones and we would talk it out for certain things. And we would play pickleball. So there was a whole bunch of different activities that really started to get my dopamine up while still feeling positive and doing everything. We would sometimes even just go for coffee or we would just all meet up at the park with our kids and let them run around and we would do things. Small basic changes in the patterns and behaviors of how we hung out allowed me to still have fun with my friends while connecting. With pickleball, it's also helped me because like it's a big game that a lot of people play. So I would play with friends at work sometimes. I would meet people at bariatric meetups and be like, oh, we should meet up again and play pickleball. And it was a good opening and closing of how to engage with people. And that really does allow with social connections. One of the cool things we do in Busy Bariatrics is we kind of talk about community building, not just in our community, but we usually share what are we doing for a healthy source of dopamine. And being in a group of people where you see that there's other connections causes a wildfire. Like, I never would have thought it, but we were talking about what's something healthy or positive you're going to do for yourself this weekend. And a client brought up in our group chat that they were going to knit. Well, her mentioning knitting brought up to about 4 or 5 other people that they love knitting. And then those 6 or 7 people now kind of still connect and they just do knitting stuff together. When it's concert going, it shares what music do we listen to? What do we like? It opens up for all these other things. So it's why like joining a community or working with people who are similar to you allows you to open up for all these other connections and building. I will say as a middle-aged man, I do sometimes struggle with making connections and friendships. But one of the places where I do that is in the gym. It's really weird, but the people who go to the gym at 5 a.m., it is the same people every single day. So when you see each other, you start to build a bond and a relationship over what you're doing. Well, over time, it slowly becomes that it starts with like the typical man. If you're on YouTube, it's like that chin up, like, what's up? And then like 6 months goes by and it's like, hey, how's it going? And then when New Year's comes around and January starts, you'll do the whole like a whole bunch of new people in there. These are like small little knocks I say that men have that kind of start to open up the conversation. And it's where we've developed like some of our best friendships. I have some really good friends at the 2 gyms I go to. I have no idea their first name, but I know what their kids do. I know what their career is. I know what their job is. I know what they like and I know what they dislike, both in their workouts and in their personal life. And it all starts by just having the common connection of lifting dumbbells. It's why I realized I got so much more out of going to the gym as opposed to just working out in my basement. And when my kids were younger, yeah, I had to do basement workouts because that was what was best for me. But by being able to like build that connection, work and develop outside allowed me to like build other friendships and bonds. Even today, like we will all go to a local watering hole on Thanksgiving morning. We get our 7 a.m. lifts in, and then a bar opens up at 8:30. And I know you're saying, Rob, we just said we're not using alcohol, but we will go because they have like a kegs and eggs, and I will partake in the eggs. And I will just enjoy the fact that like it's kind of just dudes hanging out, connecting. Again, I don't know any of their names. I probably should ask their names. I know like they probably don't listen to this, but I don't know any of their names. Like literally none. Like me and Adam have names for everyone, and I'm sure they have names for us, but I don't know their actual names. But anywho, engaging in your community allows you to feel a bond and a togetherness, and it's something that plays a big role in your development. The other part is starting to find celebrations for milestones after food. For me, a lot of it, because of the retail therapy and fast food, I used to reward myself with food, and I couldn't do that anymore. So a change that I started to make was every time that I wanted to go for fast food, I would take $5 or $10 and I would put it, it's finally making its appearance, in my Boba Fett piggy bank. If you're watching this on YouTube, this is the Boba Fett piggy bank. And what I would do is every time that I beat the urge for fast food, I would put $5 in the piggy bank. Slowly and surely, I realized in the first month alone, I was spending $750 a month on fast casual. And even just, like if I beat it half the time for that number, I'd have close to about $300 to $400 in there. And that's a lot of money. Eventually bought a treadmill, which helped me with my step goal. I was able to put like workout flooring down in my basement. It's like right over there. And I was so like, I'm looking at it and it's like, I have a TV, I have a fireplace, I have a TV stand. I have an iPad dock, I have adjustable dumbbells. I have all my awards on a shelf. And that all came from just like taking a little bit of money every time I beat a fast food urge and saying, you know what, I'm going to put this in the bank and save it for later. And that was a dopamine hit. Me not immediately buying things and having impulse buys also was a major win of crushing dopamine. I was everyone you marketed to on Instagram at my highest weight because if I saw something or a limited time offer or a sale with a countdown ticker on it, which I didn't realize, but they reset those every day, and you can do that. from an advertising standpoint. So I used to really be that sucker who thought the deal was over that day, when in reality, they always run the deal like the next week. So what I would learn to do is I could either have the reward, or if I waited 24 hours and I didn't want the reward anymore, I would put that money in the piggy bank. If I did want the award or reward, I would actually have a conversation with Kate, and then she would say, like, do you really need that? Or that sounds like a really good idea. Great example of this, like impulsivity buy. I bought like a portable tire inflator for my car for like $150. And my logic was, I think it was supposed to be $250, and there was $100 off if you bought it that day. And I bought it. My wife's like, that is the dumbest thing ever to buy. You can get them at Ace for like $50. And then when I went on, I realized you could. So then even just something as simple as like going upstairs and being like, honey, I want to buy this, and her running it by was a simple way to like put a little bit of friction in between the purchase. And as we talk about overcoming difficulties in our bariatric journey, a lot of it comes down to you just have to put a little bit of friction in between you and the thing that you want. And that can cause you to realize one of two things. One is that you really want it and you're willing to push through that friction, or you're going to take a moment, pause, and be like, I really don't need that thing. There's no real wrong answer, as long as you're taking some time to pause, reflect, and map that all out. So that's kind of how we do it with there. The next is, how do you show mindfulness and meditation to help release dopamine? I struggle with this, and I think a lot of people do, because when we think of traditional mindfulness or meditation, we think of like sitting Indian style, like at the end of yoga class, and we are namasteing and we are oming. And although I do kind of secretly like that at the beginning and end of yoga class, I'm not doing it on my own separately, nor am I doing meditation. For me, I've developed meditation to be just being reflective of my day and closing out my lists. And a way that you can be mindful is just having a to-do list. Writing down all the things I didn't get to at the end of the day would help me think of like, okay, what do I still need to do? And I would write it all out. And after I wrote it all out, I would realize like, half the stuff I really don't need to do. These are either once or they should be done by someone else. And I would cross them off the list. That's a level of mindfulness that allowed me to release dopamine, because I realized I didn't have to do it all. The things that were still on my list then became things that was like, okay, I'm going to keep these and I'm going to make them the to-do list and make them top of my mind for the next day. Small little things like that for mindfulness can go a long way in developing how you are going to live your lifestyle after bariatric surgery. Another way that you can give yourself dopamine is through small random acts of kindness. Giving back or doing something has actually shown to increase the dopamine in the giver almost as much, if not more, than the receiver. And there's a couple ways that you can do this. Taking care of a pet, taking care of a fern or a plant. It was funny. I was talking to like Dr. Banford, my therapist, about this. And he says like one of the quickest ways that they help people in mental institutions receive some sort of care is by caring for others. And unfortunately, many of them cannot be put back into society at that point. But simple ways that they can care for others is they will work in a greenhouse. Which I didn't realize was a reason they have greenhouses at institutions and even prisons. Or they will bring in pets to help with that. And caring for someone or something else helps develop that dopamine in a natural resource or way that works for them. The other way that we coach it, if you don't want to buy a pet, or if you already have too many pets, or you don't want to plant, is I always say put your money where your mouth is. I don't talk about this on social media because that's not the purpose of it, but something that we do as the D'Amedio family is we donate $100 a month to something that we feel is important in the time. So for an example, when there's like major tragedy, or people are always going on Instagram and they're posting about things or saying thoughts and prayers, where I get thoughts and prayers can kind of be nice. I always think like, if you really cared about this subject, donate some money. And even if you don't have money to donate, you can donate your time, you can volunteer, you can go on and write emails and do work like that. But for us, a lot of the times when we see major issues that are going on and we see politicians or blowhards start with the whole thoughts and prayers campaign, the Dominios take a different approach, and it's we put our money where our mouth is. How we came up with the number is we kind of look at it as, okay, we would spend about $100 if we went to get a meal out. Instead of one meal out, we're going to do one meal less each month. And the money we would spend on that meal, we're going to put towards a charitable cause. So some ones that we like, the American Red Cross for when there are natural disasters are really good. We like the Salvation Army to help with underdeveloped programs. We have given to other specific ones, as well as to Title IX campaigns and to local sports organizations that help promote women's sports. The list goes on. We've given it to local dog and animal shelters. With the whole, like, the Dominios probably can't handle a dog with our schedule, but we can at least give $100 to pay for like biscuits, blankets, or something like that to help contribute in a way. So small things like a put your money where your mouth campaign not only releases some natural dopamine, it helps also drive the needle and give to a good cause. Other simple ways that you can create dopamine on a daily basis is really getting a very clear and consistent sleep routine. Something as simple as saying that you are done for the day and being true to that, and shutting off does that. Right now, my life is very unbalanced because it's September and October, and hopefully by November this settles down. But traditionally, I keep Sundays as my sacred day, where I don't really do too much work for coaching. I do not answer teacher emails. I usually take Sunday to either prep out meals for myself or just do things that are going to be positive for me. And that really does help me with getting the sleep that I need. Restful sleep will increase your dopamine production and, more importantly, your receptor sensitivity, which means you need less of a dopamine hit to get the same results. And that'll lead to better decision making, reduced cravings, and overall mood improvement. Reading a little bit off the script just so you get all the things that dopamine does. How we coach it in Busy Bariatrics is there's some couple really simple ways to get a better sleep routine. The first is from the nitty gritty, and I say start your 3-2-1 campaign. What does that mean? No eating 3 hours before meals to let your body digest what you have already. No drinking 2 hours before meals so that you get your last time in your bathroom done, and then your body will hold a little bit better as everything goes on. And then no blue lights or screens in the last hour. I've been trying to get better with this. Like, I'll read with my daughter. Sometimes I'll just sit and talk to my other teenage daughter. And then the third time is sometimes I just watch 30 minutes of TV with my wife, and then I will spend half an hour reading so that I'm like at least getting the screens off, but I'll put my phone in the other room and I'll try to be present that way. The other part is just having a very clear routine of what that looks like. So I will pack my lunch at the end of the day. I will lay my clothes out. I will lay my gym clothes out. I will set up my nighttime, like my melatonin stack and my sleep stack to get everything. Having a clear shutdown procedure really does allow my mind to relax. My body starts to relax and I get everything else done. So with that in mind, hopefully these are some clear ways to help you identify how to get more dopamine into your life and healthy sources. But I want to leave you with the idea that bariatric surgery in and of itself will not make you happy. The results and the lifestyle you create from bariatric surgery will bring you the happiness that you are looking for. So, although the sleeve is a big part of your life, don't make it all of your life, and give yourself healthy sources of dopamine that are going to help you along the way with this. So, you're probably saying, Rob, what is the dopamine activity that you can give? And I'm going to tell you, you can share some gratitude. And I'm going to do that by asking you to help me out. So, if you want to share some free gratitude today, just share this episode and get the word out if this could help anyone with gratitude or how to get healthy dopamine after bariatric surgery. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Busy Bariatrics and subscribe to wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. The final one is, if you think I deserved it, you can leave a free 5-star rating and review for a chance to be entered to win a free product from one of our sponsors. And then I'll give you something for free in return. So that's a little gratitude I give back to you. As always, I'm Rob DeMedio, and keep getting busy.